Good to see everybody back. So let's get this started. First, let's start off with it is what everybody would love to ask about is this whole storm that happened. It wasn't something that we wanted to happen at this point. We're focused on the present. We're focused on now. We're focused on trying to get this ship moving in the right direction. And I think so far that's what we've been doing. But for this to come out, it's been a distraction. So coming up here and talking about it and addressing it is important today. And so that's what we're here to do. Next is all that went down, all that was said. Yeah, I had a good visit at the other place, Minnesota, with Ken O'Connell, good staff and all of that, obviously. He just won Coach of the Year award and things like that. So obviously good staff and things like that. But something that keeps getting lost, something that keeps getting, I think, not being addressed the way it needs to be, is the fact that, I went on that visit first, came here, and then after I came here, I went back home, talked to my dad, and, all of the things that were supposed to be these big things that everybody's been talking about recently. One never happened in the sense of they were all thoughts. They were all ideas. And I think if you're in the situation, I think if your son or daughter, anybody is in a situation to be in that position, I think you think about all of the options and, and you look at it, the history and the facts and all these different things. Those are thoughts that go throughout your head in those situations. So, all of those were thoughts. And then after I came on my visit here, it was a deliberate answer and deliberate and determined answer that I had is that I wanted to come here. And just like Ben spoke about, obviously, the past years, as everybody knows, it's a fact that quarterback play, there hasn't been a 4,000-yard passer. There's, all these different things that come up. And so, being able to have those thoughts is I think, fair to be able to have, good and bad thoughts. But like I said, I came here on a visit. And like I said, just like Ben said, it's a challenge to be able to come in here and try and turn around. And that was the main goal of all of that is to, through all of, what was, going on, through all of what happened in last year and previous years, I think that was enticing. I think that was something that was glaring to me that I wanted to come here and be the guy and be a part and be a reason on why Chicago Bears turn this thing around. So that last thing that was said and all of that, I think was the most important thing, is that I wanted to be here, that I love being here. I love my teammates. I love all the people that got me here, family, friends, Ryan, Kevin, Floos and Shane, all those guys that, went through all of that process with me to get me here. But it was all those things, like I said, were thoughts. But the main goal and the main objective of being here is to turn around. That's why I was selected number one. And so, that's what we're here to do. That's what they brought, me here to do. That's what they brought all these guys here to do. Joe, DJ, all these different guys. And that's why they brought Ben here. And so, like I said, it's a challenge. And we look at those challenges and, we don't laugh. We look at them really, really seriously. And, we go attack them, to the best of our ability to go and change it and turn it around. So, yeah.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Chicago Football Show right here on Marquee Sports Network and the Marquee Sports Network app. And what you just heard was the 3-minute and 51-second opening statement from Caleb Williams last week after an OTA practice, reacting and commenting to what came out in Seth Wickersham's upcoming book about a biography of the American quarterback. And there was a lot of juicy headlines from that, including that there were some thoughts that Caleb Williams and his dad had considered finding ways to circumvent the Bears drafting him. And there was also some talk about him not getting direction watching film. But an important part of what you just heard is that it was kind of underrepresented in the coverage was that he came to Halas Hall, he met with Ryan Poles and the Bears staff and decided that this is the place that he wanted to be. So all that is to say this. Yes, that was 6 days ago, but it was such a big story over the course of the offseason. I definitely wanted to get Carmen and Mike's take on this. Usual castmates here on the Chicago Football Show. Carmen, let's start with you. Let's put a nice yellow ribbon on the old oak tree on this story here.
A Southern saying? That's
Maybe.
cute. I honestly, this was why I was so confused why the Bears didn't put Caleb Williams out in the beginning, because he handled it fine, and he by delaying when he came to the podium and really spoke and talked about this story, it just delayed the story kind of being a non-story, right? So it's hearing him say, "Listen, I'm here now. I wanted to be here." The last part of that story was talking about how I went on a pre-draft visit and I decided that I could do this and I want to do it. And this is the reason why I was brought here. And Ryan Poles, Matt Eberflus, Shane Waldron, they all had something to do with that. So for whatever Bears fans think about the outgoing staff, there was a big, push to get Caleb Williams to Chicago because they felt like he could be the one to buck the narrative of the Chicago quarterback. And that's what he's here to do. And now he has Ben Johnson. So I actually wrote something too about how this could have been the best thing that could have happened to Caleb Williams, is coming to Chicago. And then for as wrong as everything went in his first season, if it didn't, you wouldn't end up with Ben Johnson. And we're hoping that that's, what's going to fix it all.
And I think just, for Caleb Williams' sake and for us to recap it, kind of put a bow on the oak tree. Never heard that one, Scott. That one's that's a new one for me. I like that, though. I'm going to use that. But, for Caleb, I think that this shows that maturity that he made his choice, right? And really, maybe he didn't have the choice. We heard that Ryan Poles told him that they were going to draft him no matter what. But, of course, there is always that option. And that was what came out in this book, in this excerpt, that, he could have made the choice to say, I don't want to be a Bear. I don't want to be in Chicago. He could use the nuclear option, as they put it, right? But he didn't. And he made the choice that he wanted to come to Halas Hall after he got some reassurances. Honestly, I think from a Bears fan perspective, I think most Bears fans respect him more after this, knowing that this guy's legit about wanting to succeed in his career. And that can't be underrated, right? All of us in whatever career or whatever job you have, you want to succeed, well, of course you're going to look out for your own best intentions. And that's what I really think that a lot of this story was, but it came out to the forefront and it came out in public of the ideas of how he was going to do it. So I think in the long run, Bears fans respect the fact that Caleb Williams ended up choosing them in the sense that he's okay with it. So I love it. Like you said, Carmen, it might be one of the best things to happen to Caleb Williams in the sense that, okay, everything's out on display now. Everybody knows that maybe he had questions. But he's here now, and that's what matters going forward. So I like that it is now put to bed, and let's get back to football, things that actually matter.
Yeah, the way that I kind of looked at it is that every thought that he had was correct. All of his fears were right. But also,
right? Yeah.
Nobody wants an unlimited access to what's going on up here, right? There are some strange neurotic things going on in people's heads. You think it doesn't mean that you're going to act on it. But we're going to go through another one of these cycles. Fair warning, when this book comes out, there's going to be another detail that prompts another question, something like that, as we get closer to September when Seth Wickersham's book comes out. But we are a long ways from that, and we are right in the middle of Bears mandatory minicamp. Day one was here at Halas Hall. It was windy. It was kind of hot. It was an imperfect practice, but Ben Johnson said something important is that over the course of what's been the seventh practice in roughly 2 weeks, he's seeing growth in terms of discipline, in terms of being aligned right, in terms of timing between different position groups. And that's all you can ask for when you're installing an offense that's going to be kind of complicated. And one other kind of takeaway that I had from what Ben Johnson was saying is that right now they're trying everybody everywhere. DJ Moore in the slot, cool. Let's figure it out. Cole Kmet out wide, let's see how he does with that. And then they're going to evaluate the tape, and then they're going to narrow it down and be like, okay, which routes can these guys run? How does this individual protect best? And then define roles as we get towards training camp. Cast a wide net, bring it in. So I do think that was important just to kind of set up the show a little bit. We heard from Ben Johnson. We heard from tight end Cole Kmet for the first time since they drafted Colston Loveland, DJ Moore, and running back DeAndre Swift when they didn't draft a running back. So there were questions about that too. We're going to get to all that, and obviously stay tuned to Marquee Sports Network and MarqueeSportsNetwork.com for the latest coming out of Bears minicamp throughout the course of the week. So let's just get right into it here. Let's go to the first soundbite. Ben Johnson talking about DeAndre Swift.
I've got a history with him. I was with him when he was a rookie, and then certainly my first year calling it there in Detroit, he was with me as well. So here's what I know about him is he is a fierce competitor. And that's what I love about him is when the lights are bright, you're going to know exactly what you're going to get. If you tell him that you're going to need 1 yard, 4 yard, whatever that is, he's going to find a way to put his shoulder down and move the pile and get that done for you. It goes back to what we're trying to instill for the entire offense, not just that particular player. Year 10, year 1, it's all about the basics here this springtime, the fundamentals. What does a proper pass block from the backfield look like? What's ball security look like? What's the proper catching the football look like? We're breaking it down to the studs and growing it up from there. So for him right now, it's the tracks on all of our run game, being consistent and true to that. And the pass pro is a little bit new for him as well.
Yeah, Mike, what do you make of that? And DeAndre Swift, too, was pretty critical of how he finished the 2024 season, and deservedly so. The yards per carry were way down, but that was Ben Johnson saying some nice things about a guy that he was on a team that traded.
Yeah, of course, there's always going to be nice things to be said here in the spring going into the summer. But I think Ben Johnson is going to give everybody kind of that equal chance to prove themselves, whether he's known him or not, whether he's played with them or not, whether DeAndre Swift or another player on the roster. I think, the Bears are looking for playmakers. DeAndre Swift has proven in the past that he could be a playmaker. There's obviously other questions aside, or what type of runner will he fit within this, running through the tackles type of scheme. But I think the Bears want him to succeed more than maybe fans really believe, right? Like the Bears need playmakers, and if this contract could stand up and Swift becomes the guy that he was in Philadelphia with the Eagles, or even in spurts with Detroit, that's a win for the Bears. So I think Ben Johnson and the coaching staff, of course, want to pump him up right now publicly. What are they saying behind closed doors? We'll find out maybe in due time how they treat him, how much playing time he gets. But, of course, DeAndre Swift right now, as it is running back number 1. And there's really no, change to that in the future, at least right now.
Carmen, do you think they need to go get –
that means –
I was just going to say, do you think they should go get somebody else?
Well, the thing is, I'm very curious to see what this all means for DeAndre Swift. Is he going to be a 3-down back? Is he, like Ben Johnson said, that he'll get you what you need him to get you? But does that mean every down? Does that mean, and does the improvement along the offensive line kind of add to the fact that maybe it's going to be easier for DeAndre Swift to do that? Or are they going to kind of figure out where exactly he fits in, what exactly he's good at, and then supplement that with like these other playmakers like you're talking about, Mike? I do think that the Bears would benefit from adding another running back to this kind of rotation and to figure out and a complimentary back. But Roschon Johnson can do some of that too. And we have to kind of get it through our heads, I think, collectively, that this offense isn't going to look it's not going to be in its final form in the very beginning. And it's not even going to be in its final form in this first year, if I had to take a guess. So I think that Ben Johnson is so good at figuring out what he has and how to work with that, whether that means getting a little bit more creative in the run game, like, having DJ Moore in the backfield or Roma Dunze, kind of act as a running back on certain gadget plays and this, that, and the other. I think that Ben Johnson is so good at understanding what his players can and can't do and devising the scheme and calling a game accordingly. So what that means for DeAndre Swift, I don't know yet. I don't know if that means that they're going to ask him to be a 3-down back, because if they don't think that he's capable of that, or they see him fitting in a different role, maybe they try to supplement it with other aspects of the offense. Again, we have to kind of think about these guys, like both of you have kept saying, as weapons, more as, all right, if this is going to be a run first scheme, then we need this many running backs. Do you? I don't know. I mean, if Ben Johnson can figure it out with other guys that are on the roster by using them a little bit more creatively, which we've seen him do. I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown did it all the time in Detroit. Even Jameson Williams came out of the backfield often, and that's something that I think we could definitely see in Chicago, especially with how deep that wide receiver room is.
Yeah, there's lots of playmakers, and a big time playmaker for the Bears in the past is Cole Kmet, who also took the podium. There was lots of good sound from Tuesday afternoon, but I did want to hit one more soundbite here. I think it's super relevant. First time that we've heard Cole Kmet speak publicly since the Bears took a tight end in Colston Loveland from Michigan at number 10. So here is what Cole Kmet said about his reaction to the Bears taking Loveland so high and the phone call that he got from head coach Ben Johnson.
Yeah, I think at first, you're taken back a little bit. But, I mean, Ben was awesome about it in terms of calling me right away and kind of explaining the decision. And, from there, you're just all on board on it and you kind of understand their vision. And, you understand that there's going to be areas where we complement each other. And then there's obviously, just like in any position room, there's going to be areas where we compete for things, and that's football and that's how it should be. So I'm excited about it, and I'm excited to not only push him and then for him to push me, and we're going to make each other better. And, I think the goal with it is to, become the best 12 tandem in the league and see where we can take it from there.
Yeah, I think Cole Kmet, he's won the Good Guy Award twice. You knew he was going to handle that professionally, but I thought it was pretty interesting the way that he phrased it, that he was taken aback when they took a tight end at number 10. And he didn't know Ben Johnson. He doesn't know where he stands with Ben Johnson or where Ben Johnson stands with him. And the willingness to get on the phone right away and say, hey, we still have a vision for you. And there's going to be times when they're going to complement each other, Cole and Colston. See if I can always get that right. And there will be times that they compete for things. And the goal is to be the best 12 personnel tight end tandem in the league. So I think he took it well, but I think it's fair in human nature that when you don't know that that's coming, Carmen, and then all of a sudden at number 10 and the first word is tight end, you naturally are, what the heck, especially with a new coach.
Yeah, I mean, it goes both ways because you think about how Ben Johnson likes to use tight ends. He likes those multiple tight end sets, like you said, the 12 personnel, even 13. He trots out there every now and again. The Lions ran 12 personnel at the third highest rate in the league last year. But that being said, the third highest rate in the league last year was still only I want to say it was 12 or 14% of the time. So it's not as if just because you're running it a lot comparatively to the rest of the league that you're running it a majority of the time. That's not the thing. So there are limited snaps that Cole Kmet is that could be taken away from Cole in favor of Colston Loveland. But I do still see them both having a very crucial kind of role in this offense. And I do think that Ben Johnson is one of the best at using tight ends and using how they exploit defenses and create mismatches all over the field. That's why you see Cole Kmet, maybe lining up out wide or them doing different things. This is all the evaluation period to figure out how Cole and Colston can play off of each other and how they can still both have a role in this offense. Also, Colston's coming off injury, so there's that where Cole is, he can still be that steadying presence for Caleb. And I think that's the most important part. And that's the most important role that these tight ends will serve in Ben Johnson's offense. And there's room for both of them. But I mean, I'm sure that Cole was like, hey, wait, you just gave me a contract. What do you mean? Some of my reps are now going to be taken away because you spent a first round pick on a tight end. I think that's a totally fair concern. But I think it's going to inevitably be a good thing for this Bears offense to have both of those guys as options for Caleb Williams.
All right, we're going to take a quick break on the Chicago Football Show, but don't go anywhere because after the break, we have Bears beat reporter from the Bigs, Herb Howard, joining us on the other side. And now we are joined with a special guest, one of my favorite Chicago media personalities in the entire Bears beat reporter for the Bigs and co-host of the Herb and Two podcast. Herb Howard is joining us after day one of Bears mandatory minicamp. But Herb, I want to go back to a question that you asked that really stuck with me about I think it was after one of the OTA practices, and you prefaced it like this: "Hey Ben, I'm trying to get to know you as a coach. Why did you have the guys re-huddle?" Right? And I don't want to ask specifically about that question, but generally, as you get to know a new head coach, what are things that you're looking for when you're watching practices to like try to identify, okay, like this is who Ben Johnson really is, and kind of like what have you learned about him through those questions and through watching him work?
Yeah, Scott, for me, it's just trying to get a feel for how these coaches are going to hold the players to a certain standard and what that standard is. Every time there's a new coaching change and a new regime comes in, they talk about setting the standard high and this is what's going to be the expectations. But then oftentimes, at least for around the Bears, you don't really see that held, consistently across the board. And so when I see Coach Johnson out there making guys get back into the huddle because he simply did not like the way that they sounded coming out of it, the way that they looked coming out of it, those are things that I want to know. And so when he was sending them back in the huddle, I just want to know, like, why are you making them go back there? And so when he says those types of small details, it gives me some insight onto how he's going to go about coaching this team, how he's going to go about holding them accountable, and what he's going to be looking for when he's kind of evaluating each individual's performance as well as the team as a whole.
It's interesting, her, because this is what this is what we heard Caleb Williams talk about last year. He wanted a coach that was going to coach him hard. We heard multiple guys in the locker room say that they wanted better communication from the coaches and they wanted to be coached hard. They're getting it now. Have you what have you talked to these guys about, just kind of and heard from them as far as how they're reacting to kind of getting their wish?
So far, they're all saying the right things. So far, they all say they appreciate, the tough coaching and the accountability and the fact that they're holding them, tight to all these details. We've heard them all say it. And I today I actually asked DJ, about that along those lines. Just listen, DJ doesn't know what it's like to be on a winning football team, a winning football program that has sustained success. As good as DJ is, he hasn't had that. He played for the Panthers and the Bears his whole career, so he hasn't had that. He doesn't really know what that looks like. And I wonder if, how trusting are the players going to be of Coach Johnson that this, intense, in your face kind of mentality of a coach, how long are they going to trust him that is going to get them to where they want to go? Because many of them haven't really been there. And so how long do they trust that, or how long does it take for them to say, okay, this is just irritating, it's getting on my nerves and I don't like it?
And yeah, along those lines, like you're saying, not everybody on this roster has won. In fact, a lot of guys haven't won on this roster, right? But
Very
you
few.
bring in a guy like Joe Tooney, you bring in a couple guys that have had experience and success, and obviously the coaching staff, has had some success as well. How important is that in a locker room, and really, like, how much can guys gain from other players? Because it seems like it's this like abstract concept of like, oh, we're bringing in veterans. Of course they're going to bring experience, but like, how can that really be felt in a locker room and then translate onto the field?
Yeah, it's just not about having experience. It's about having winning experience. Have you done this before? Have you climbed this mountain that we're all trying to climb? When you get a guy like Joe Tooney, who's done it multiple times for different franchises, that's the type of experience that you can value. That's the type of person you can lean on. He may not be a rah-rah guy, but he's going to be a guy that you can go to, have those conversations. He's also going to be a guy that you can just watch about how he goes about his own business in the classroom, in the weight room, on the practice field. Those types of things are valuable to a team. And when you don't have a ton of guys who've done that, you really, really need to start to kind of bring some of those guys in and get them to understand it. I look at it, Mike, like a relationship, man. Until you've had a good relationship, you don't really know what's wrong with your bad relationship. You're just like, this I know it doesn't work. I know it doesn't feel good, but I don't really know why or how to make it work. And then you get in the good one, you're like, oh, this is what this thing feels like. This is the kind of work that you put into it. And I think some of these players are going to be learning that on the fly.
Yeah, somebody cut that clip and put it on social media immediately. That's going to go big. In terms of the running back spot, Herbert, I think a lot of us assumed, and maybe the Bears wanted to draft a running back higher than they got one, which was in the seventh round, the guy out of Rutgers, and you're left with this position group with DeAndre Swift as the most experienced and highest paid guy, and Roschon Johnson. And there's been a lot of conversation about, do they add another body, right? That there's still veterans on the street. Kind of what did you take from DeAndre Swift's press conference on Tuesday, and what are your thoughts kind of overall about the state of the running back room right now?
Yeah, I mean, you went through the entire offseason and everybody's talking like the Bears have to get a running back. They have to get a running back. Could they be in play for Genty in the top 10? Could they move up and do those types of things? We heard about the options that were available at this in the second round that kind of went right before they ended up taking Luther Burden. But at the end of the day, the Bears have the room that they have. And I think that, it would be hard for me to believe that DeAndre Swift hasn't heard, you know, those conversations and this the perception that he's just a back that likes to bounce it outside. He can't get you those tough inside yards. And it's a conversation that I had with him in long form last year in the locker room. We kind of said his locker and talked about it for 5 or 10 minutes or so. And it was a pretty good conversation because he doesn't believe he's that type of back. He believes he can get the tough yards as well. And so I kind of tried to ask him that again today. And I could tell he was just a little irritated by the conversation, which to me just let me know that he's been hearing the same things that I've been hearing. And so he's asking me, like, what can I do, Herb? Like, Dre, I don't believe that about you. I actually think that DeAndre Swift is a really good back. I think he was a victim of the circumstances last year just as much as Caleb was. You look at DJ's numbers, you look at Cole's numbers. All those guys were impacted by the circumstances around this entire football team, plus the offensive line. Everybody talks about Caleb trying to play behind that offensive line. Well, Dre had to run behind that same offensive line. And so I'm not as down on him as some people were throughout this process, but it's human nature. You hear those things. And I just want to know really from him, is that something that motivated him throughout his offseason workouts? Is it something that's in the back of his mind as he goes down to the practice field to try and prove to a new coaching staff that, hey, not only can I take it 60 to the house, I can also get you the tough 4 when it's necessary. And I could have worded that question a little bit differently. I could tell he kind of felt attacked by it. But at the end of the day, I think most likely this is going to be the group that they go into the season with. Maybe they add a veteran later. We've heard the different names, Dobbins and all. Like maybe one of those things happens. But even if it does, is anybody going to look at that player and say, well, that's going to be the difference in this room right now? I think what they're hoping the biggest difference in this room right now is an improved offensive line, improved play calling from Coach Johnson, and Coach Eric Bieniemy taking over as that position coach. And if those things happen, then I think they could still end up with a pretty decent room. Maybe not elite, but good enough.
Yeah, I mean, this time period right now is really just all about evaluating that, right? Like what DeAndre Swift is capable of, and especially in the current environment that he's in, and looking at how these 5 offensive linemen play together. Because for as much experience as a guy like Joe Thuney has, even Drew Dahlman or Jonah Jackson, these guys have never played together. They haven't played for the Chicago Bears. They haven't played in this scheme. I mean, Jonah Johnson's played for the Johnsons before, but they're Jonah Jackson.
Right.
What I want to kind of understand is this during this evaluation period, how much of it is really going to be taken into account by Ben Johnson for the scheme? And, maybe they don't have the strongest running back room, but then do they supplement because they've got a really deep wide receiver room with, some of these guys coming out of the backfield, doing some more kind of creative things, more variety in this scheme. How important is this time period to really understand your players and understand what they're capable of to therefore devise a scheme that will win them some games this season?
I think it's critical, V. I think that's what he's trying to figure out. What exactly do we have? One of the best things, one of the most impressive things I heard him say during his introductory press conference was that he was going to build an offense that's tailored around what these particular players do well, not necessarily
Mm-hmm.
try and duplicate what he did in Detroit. Now, that being said, every coach still has an ideal way for how he wants to play the game. And I believe Coach Johnson is no different. And so if you look at what he was doing in Detroit, you say, well, this is probably closer to his ideal style for what he wants to do. Then they ran the ball quite well, and they were able to set up a lot of things off of it. They were able to do a lot of different things because they were able to put 2 tight ends on the field and run the ball, and then they were able to, utilize their play action game off of that, create some explosives. And so I think ideally he wants to get something that looks similar to that, but he absolutely does have to figure out, are these players capable of those things? What do they do best? And then how do I implement that into what my ideal version of offense is? So I think they still want to remain balanced. And they're going to have to figure out, how they can do that with this running game. How does that offensive line come together? Because like you said, for all the additions that they made, they still need some time to gel. They still have to learn the system as well. And so if those things can come together over, late spring into the summer through the preseason, then maybe they'll have a chance to hit the ground running. But I think ideally he still wants to have a pretty healthy running game to set up his passing game.
Hit the
From
ground
Howard
running.
joining us here
Hit
on the
the
Chicago
ground
Football
running.
Show. Hit the ground running. Hit the ground running. That's what we do here on the Chicago Football Show. And Herb, I know we love talking offense. I know this whole offseason, it's going to be about Ben Johnson. It's going to be about offense. We know Caleb Williams is going to get all the eyes and the attention, but I'm just as interested in the defense this year, especially under Dennis Allen. It's going to be a big year, I think, for their defense for a lot of guys on that squad. What have you kind of seen from Dennis Allen's coaching style, and how have you kind of gotten to know him a little bit? And what do you think that we should be expecting as Bears fans from this defense this year?
Very, very intrigued by what Coach Allen is going to bring to the defense, right? Just kind of mixing things up, showing some different exotic looks, putting guys in a lot of one-on-one situations in terms of the cornerbacks, pressing guys at the line of scrimmage, and then giving the quarterbacks different looks. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how he deploys the defense week one, Monday night. You get J.J. McCarthy coming in, making his first NFL start. It's going to be Monday night. It's going to be a homecoming for him. Can you trick that young quarterback into a couple of mistakes, get some turnovers? And I think utilizing guys like Jalen Johnson, if he's going to travel with the other team's best receiver, put him in situations where now you can use those other 10 guys to kind of move them around. You got some very versatile pieces. You think about a guy like Kyler Gordon, his ability to not only play in the box, but then to drop out into coverage and carry guys down the seam. He can play outside. We even heard some ideas of maybe him playing into safety. And when I think about him playing safety, that's just very, very intriguing to me. Not necessarily he's going to line up, in a cover two deep look like that, but he can. If you're a quarterback and you break the huddle and then you come out and you see a snapshot that says you got too high and you see, you know, Kevin Bair and Jaquan Brisker back too deep. And then you look again and Jaquan's walked down to the box. Now you think you got single high, but right at the snap, Kyler Gordon bails out and then you got two safeties again. Like that's very, very hard to kind of figure out in a split second where to go with the football. It gives the defensive line an extra second to get to the quarterback, start creating some turnovers. And so I'm just excited about what he wants to do. He's talking about using those linebackers interchangeably. We heard Montez Sweat say he's doing some different things, talking about moving up and down the defensive line and what Coach Allen is asking for him. So I think it's just very, very exciting and intriguing for what he can do. Chicago defense, we're kind of used to seeing, I don't want to say vanilla because that has a bad connotation, but we're kind of used to sitting in their bases, kind of doing their thing. Whereas this defense is going to be more of an attacking style that kind of dictates to offense how the flow of this game is going to go.
This is not the first season that the Bears have kind of like won the offseason, right? That there's been optimism during the spring and the summer and years past, even last year. And you've been around and you've been to the puppet show and seen the strings, right? But yes. Is there more optimism in this variation of it for you, or are you still in a guarded wait and see? How are you kind of evaluating what's happened from Ben Johnson on forward? They still haven't played a game. They haven't won a game under this coach, but are you willing to accept the optimism, or are you still kind of wait and see?
I would say guarded optimism. I would use both the words you kind of put in there. Just some guarded optimism, if you will. I think that Caleb showed a lot of things last year that I think he can be the player that they hope that he is, right? And I think that if he can get the right pieces around him, not only in terms of the players on the field, but the coaches and the infrastructure, and I think he'll have a better chance of actually reaching his ceiling. Just kind of getting to know Coach Johnson, like we were talking about earlier, he seems like he's going to be very consistent in what he's talking about. We've heard these things before from previous regimes talking about, we're not going to walk past mistakes. And then 6 months later, you hear, well, we probably should have addressed this in training camp or addressed this in the spring. Like, well, why didn't you? And it doesn't seem like Coach Johnson is ever going to come off of, calling out those mistakes and making sure guys are on top of the details. And I think that as much as anything is going to give them an opportunity to be successful on Sundays. I think these coaches are responsible for, 7, 8 points on a game day, and just in terms of decisions that they make on the sideline. And I think that's yet to be seen, right? So everybody's really, really excited about Coach Johnson. I am too. I've liked everything I've seen from him so far and heard him say. But at the end of the day, nobody's ever seen him, manage a football game on the sideline. He's going to be learning on the job as well. What I do like about the position that he's in is that he's surrounded himself with veteran coaches who've been there before. You talk about Coach Allen or Coach Bieniemy. Like, I think those things are going to help him as he kind of grows through this process. But I think right now, I guess probably the best you could be is guardedly optimistic. Like, I don't know that you can be like, oh yeah, this is a for sure thing, because there's a lot to prove for a lot of people, including the quarterback and the head coach. But I think you look at, each of the moves that the Bears have made throughout this offseason, starting with coach, starting with some of the player acquisitions. I don't think you can look at them and say they were bad moves. Are they going to work out? Who knows, Scott? Like, I have no idea, right? We'll have to wait and see. But I don't think anybody will be able to look back on it and say, well, that wasn't the right move. They made the right moves. Coach Johnson was the right hire. They added the right pieces. we'll have to wait and see if it all comes together.
Yeah, I've been using the term defensible at the very least. Like every move that the Bears have made this season has at least been defensible, whether that's getting the best available coach in Ben Johnson, the best available center in Drew Dahlman, going out and being aggressive in the trade market before free agency even hit. These are all of the things that like I'm like, oh, they are kind of doing things differently. But at the same time, it's all new. And you talk about Caleb Williams in particular. Ben Johnson has said multiple times, we're bringing him down to the studs and we're setting a new foundation for him. So, what is a realistic expectation in your eyes for Caleb Williams to start the season? What this offense is going to look like to start the season? Whether or not that's how they finish it, I think it'll get better. Yeah. But what's all involved in doing something like that for a quarterback who was used to doing things a certain way last year, even if it was on his own, and now is trying to build this foundation up from scratch, essentially?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm not a huge like placing numbers on quarterbacks type of person. I'm more of a wins and losses guy. But I think that what you'll be looking for in terms of, Caleb's progression early in the season is how well does he handle the offense? Are they getting in and out of the huddle? The things that Coach Johnson's looking for on day one. How quickly does he acclimate to those types of things? And do you see the operation just run smoothly? Right? Are they communicating? Are they getting in and out of the huddle? Are they getting to the line of scrimmage? Are they eliminating the penalties, the pre-snap penalties, the silly mistakes? Are they not getting too low into the play clock unless they choose to get low into the play clock? Those types of things are things that I'm going to be looking for to say, okay, he's got a pretty good handle on what it is Coach Johnson wants to do. How deep into Coach Johnson's bag can he go in terms of play calling, right? How limited will Caleb Williams, the entire offense be? If Coach Johnson wants to get to, 300 level stuff in his system, can he get there? How early can he get there? Will that be, week 4? Is it week 8? Is it week 12? How quickly can he get deep into his bag in terms of what he wants to do, how he wants to scheme guys open? Like all these things just have to come together. You talk about the coast and leveling, getting involved and getting acclimated. He's got to get healthy. Luther Burden, the same thing. And then where do all these pieces fit? Who is best here and there? And then that will allow Coach Johnson to start to figure out, okay, these are the pieces that I'm playing with. I know how to move them around. And that'll help Caleb get familiar with those guys in those positions. And then that'll allow them to get off to a much faster start because they really need to get out to a decent start just looking at the schedule that they have.
Well, Herb, I was just thinking about the schedule too, and Bears have a tough one. You got a lot of good opponents on there. A couple teams that you think would probably bounce back. What are kind of some of the games that you're looking forward to, the matchups, or prime time? Anything that's standing out?
Yeah, I mean the first game that jumps out is the Washington game. You're right. It's a chance to go out there and exercise some demons from last year. I'm sure Caleb hears all the talk about Jaden Daniels and maybe the Bears chose the wrong one. I'm sure Tyreek has heard everything he needed to hear about how he performed on that last play. And just the team as a whole, I'm sure they're excited to get back out there and try and get a W. But I look at their schedule as a whole, and it's like a tale of 2 seasons, man. That road schedule is brutal. They're going to Philly, they're going to Baltimore, they're going back to San Francisco, who should have a bounce back season. Of course, they got the 3 division games, but they got some road games that are going to be pretty tough. And I think they're going to have to take care of business at home as much as possible. I know they got Dallas coming in, they got Pittsburgh coming in. Those are some games they're going to have to win. They're going to have to take care of business at home in the division too, because I just look at the schedule and I look at the road schedule specifically, and it looks pretty tough. So if they're going to get to, a place where they're in the hunt or they're in, competing for a wild card and they're 8, 9, 10 win situation, they're going to really have to make some hay at home because I think it's going to be a tough sledding on the road.
Herb Howard, thank you so much for joining the Chicago Football Show. Please, everybody, go find his work. It's everywhere. The Bears beat reporter for the Bigs, and go subscribe to the Herb and 2 podcast. Good stuff. Try it out. Herb, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank y'all so much for having me. I truly appreciate it.
I just want to say thank you again to Herb Howard for joining the Chicago Football Show. All 3 of us were actually talking off air about how good his questions are and how he kind of like thinks about things in a really analytical way. And I love that he's willing to ask the questions of, hey, I don't know Ben Johnson very well. This may be a minor thing, but it's going to help me get to know the Bears head coach better. And that part I thought was a really interesting angle that he's taken over the course of this offseason, because it's very clear at a practice or hearing Ben Johnson in front of a podium, it's a little bit different. The intensity is up. The attention to detail is up. And you can see that at the few access points that we get. DJ Moore and the boys get access to it a lot more. And when you hear them talk about Ben Johnson, the attention to detail, the demand for as close to perfection as you can possibly get, that's there. And I thought it was really interesting to hear DJ Moore kind of talk about that and talk about the tone that's being set in the offseason program. So let's hear from the Bears veteran wide receiver about what Ben Johnson is bringing to the team and his assessment of Caleb Williams' growth heading into year 2.
To shake things up, keep everybody motivated and going. You never know what you get the next day, and then that's always a question of what we got, and you always got to be ready.
What do you see of Caleb now as he enters year 2 in the league?
A lot of growth. You can tell he's on his A game every day because I know he probably gets the most out of everybody because he's the quarterback and he wants to be perfect in himself, and then the staff wants him to be perfect to lead this offense.
In what ways do you see growth?
Just taking control of the huddle, knowing his playbook, and just being a leader that he is at the quarterback spot.
Yeah, I think all those answers were telling and line up with what Ben Johnson said, even going back to his introductory press conference, that he needs the quarterback to be the extension of the play caller and that the play caller needs to see the field through the quarterback's eyes. But everything is about detail-oriented, getting it right. And, we've talked about it, right? And Carmen, you asked Herb about this, that we've got the hard coaching. Now the players are getting what they want, how are they going to be able to handle it? But I do think the tone that's being set by the head coach right now is one of discipline, is one of high standard, and one of high expectation. I think all those things are positives as you're trying to build a program that's kind of been torn down and is being built back up.
Yeah, I mean, something that I've seen from Ben Johnson covering the Lions and being at practices and seeing Ben Johnson at practices before, there's kind of this attitude of let's strive for perfection, understanding that perfection isn't usually going to happen, but if you fall short of that, you're still a pretty damn good football team. And that's kind of, I think, the mentality that Ben Johnson tries to instill in his players. And it means that absolutely everything across the board has to be perfect. And he's going to get on you for the little stuff, but he's also going to go to bat for you, though, and he's going to reward you in some really fun and creative ways. So we've already seen him go to bat for Caleb Williams at the podium when this Seth Wickersham story came out. Ben Johnson was the first one to talk about it, and he kind of addressed it directly, took it head on, tried to shield his quarterback from as much of it as he possibly could. But what I've seen from Ben Johnson in the way that he rewards players for as hard on them as he is on the field. He will design plays for certain players if they're playing their former team, or if they had a bad outing the game before, or, they were known for something at college, and he'll name a play, something from their college years, and make sure that they incorporate it when that player is feeling himself or to get him back into the groove of something. He finds really fun ways to reward his players. And I hope that continues, because that's something that's really easy for an offensive coordinator to do. A head coach, you're dealing with the entire roster with both sides of the ball. So can you kind of incorporate that for every player? I'm not sure. But it's going to be really interesting to kind of see how all of these guys really respond to Ben Johnson, especially in this initial phase when the reward isn't really coming yet, right? Like we talked to Herb about that too, where it's just kind of every day you're getting something different, like DJ said, and you're getting some really hard coaching, and you're getting people yelling in your face, and you're these little minute details that you may not think are worth it, and you're not getting any of the payoff yet. How long is that going to be able to keep up, and can they really build a strong foundation from it as you go into the season, and then can have the opportunity to get rewarded? But it's kind of this waiting game for players right now, and I think it's the right way to approach it. Demand more so that if you get less, it's not the end of the world. It's just how much do players buy into that? And I hope that they do, because Ben Johnson has a track record of getting the most out of guys. Just look at what he did in Detroit.
And the buy-in factor is huge. They need to buy in, and that's the only way that the Bears or any football team, for that matter, would be successful. I feel like right now, if you guys will follow me along in this metaphor, I feel like if we're in a sports movie right now, take Remember the Titans. How about Remember the Titans? Great sports movie. We're at the part where the coach and the players are kind of getting to know each other. This is the Denzel Washington, Coach Boone, really drilling them
Julius
down.
and Gary Bertier are like fighting each other.
Oh yeah, of course. Like, we will be perfect in everything we do. If you fumble, you're going to run a mile, everything. So I feel like we're in that part of the sports movie with the Bears 2025 season. This is the feeling out process. And we're going to go, we have a long process ahead. Like you said, the reward for these players and that success, whether or not it's going to translate in the practice field to the actual playing field, that comes a long ways from now. We have a long time till then, but we're in the feeling out process. So I think it's good for all the players to kind of get used to that intensity on the practice field. And hopefully that pays off in the long run, because like you said, Carb, it's all about that buy-in. And the longer it takes for this team to buy in, the probably longer it will take for those strides to be taken forward.
I just want to know who Sunshine is then. Who's the comic relief on this roster?
I mean, Tyson Bagent was before he cut his hair, right? I mean, he was clearly Sunshine,
fair.
At least with the flow, right?
That's fair.
Yeah,
but
I thought there
guys,
was
I'm going to spin it real quick here, though, Scott. I was going to spin it to our new segment, right? Because I want to make sure we have enough time. Because if my metaphor there didn't quite do it, this segment will take you along for another ride. We're going to call it Kick It or Run It. Kick it or run it. Do you like this take? Do you not like this take? If you don't like it, you're kicking it. If you like this take, we're running it, all right? So I'm going to fire a couple hot takes out for you guys, a couple things in the news, and a couple things that, maybe make sense in the Bears fandom world. But the first one is more of a Chicago sports topic. As we saw in the news recently, Chicago Fire announced they're going to have a $650 million stadium being built in the 78th, one of the properties or one of the parts of Chicago that was kind of rumored to be a Bears spot. Bears obviously talking about Arlington Heights now. That's their new refocus. Scott, kick it or run it? The Chicago Fire will have a new stadium built before the Chicago Bears will have theirs built.
Oh, I'm going to run through the gauntlet with a full head of steam on this one. They're not asking for any public funds. They have a site. It's beautiful. It's in the South Loop. And I think that it's one of those things where once politicians hear no public funds, they're going to get real excited. And all of a sudden the permits start getting approved and things like that. And I wouldn't even call it a hiccup necessarily, but just the fact that the latest state kind of like legislation session has ended without any legislation to help with taxes and all these other types of things that the Bears are looking for to get shovels in the ground, as Kevin Warren has promised, by the end of 2025 in Arlington Heights. He said that site is pad ready, but there's still some things that need to get done. And there are some interests that are going to be active in making sure that the surrounding communities, not just Arlington Heights, are being satisfied, and how that infrastructure is going to work. Because when you put a giant stadium and then the hotels and the restaurants, things get complicated. This is my third stadium push in my career. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. But yeah, the Fire seem to have a pretty good lane here, so I'm betting on them.
Yeah, I think I agree that it's going to get done beforehand, but I'm also not naive enough to think that there aren't some taxpayer funds that are going to have to be used, and therefore some bureaucracy that the Fire are going to have to clear in order to get the stadium built. But the PR for the Fire, they're doing it all right by saying, listen, we're investing this much money of our own money. The owner is investing this much money of his own money to make sure that the majority of this project is coming from privatized income rather than the taxpayer dollar, even if there are some taxpayer dollars that are inevitably going to have to be used because of the surrounding area, because of the permits, the taxes, this, that, the other. But I do think, the build that the Bears want to do, other than it being physically bigger than what the Fire are proposing, it's monetarily bigger, but there's also the surrounding area, like you said, Scott, where the Bears want to build that area up. They want to have the hotels. They want to have the restaurants. They want to have that. And that will result in revenue for Arlington Heights, but it also changes the dynamic of the entire suburb. When you think of Arlington Heights as a suburb, as someone who's grown up in this area, it's a quaint town. It's a nice town that has a nice, cute downtown that, people, it's a neighborhood. It's a family. It's kind of like very family oriented. When you introduce this commercial, building with all that's going to bring people from all over the world to it, in the case of some of these events that would be held at Soldier Field, that changes the dynamic of the entire area. So then, yeah, I mean, you do get people pushing back on it. You get a little bit more bureaucracy. And then on top of the fact that you are asking for taxpayer funds to help fund all of this with the promise of revenue return for Arlington Heights, it's all a lot more complicated. So I'm fully in on the Fire getting their stadium.
Yeah, in Chicago politics, everything's always smooth, and there's never any delays.
Windy
So
City, right?
we'll see
The Windy
which
City.
stadium gets built first. Spin it to the next kick it or run it. I'm going to go to you, Carm, on this one first. We saw Saquon Barkley announced as the new Madden cover athlete. Kick it or run it. Caleb Williams will be a Madden cover athlete at some point in his career.
Why?
I just want to see where she goes with this.
Ceiling on the kid. I don't want to put a ceiling on the kid, but like also can we just get to him? Can we get him 4,000 yards passing first before we think about ending up on a Madden cover where, you know, Saquon Barkley is like being attached to a thing so he can recreate his reverse hurdle stunt. God, I'm gonna kick it for now. Can I do that?
You can come back to it if you want. If you want to run it a little later, you can
I'm
punt
gonna
now
kick it like
and
for
regroup.
now, like for this season, before like show me something. This is what I've said that like for everything. Show me something. Show me something, Bears. Show me something, quarterback of the Chicago Bears, because I haven't seen it.
I love a good Carmen rant. It's my highlight of the shows. There's a thing called the Madden curse too. It's not as prominent as it used to be, but Bears are going to need their quarterback upright too. And I mean, does he have the potential? Sure. I mean, if we want to get real into it, he's going to have to compete with Jaden Daniels and Drake May and Bo Nix for the rights too. Just because there's a lot of good quarterbacks in his class. There's been some terrible quarterback classes. I think 2024 is a pretty darn good one to start anyway. So yeah.
Bears have never had a cover athlete, just for the record. Bears have never had one.
Yeah, because they don't put a lot of defensive guys on the cover of Madden. So of course the Bears haven't had one.
Urlacher was probably the best chance, but they went with Ray Lewis those years instead. So it was a close one.
Yeah,
we'll see about Caleb.
It's hard to argue with that too.
I don't know. I just want to see a classic Madden version and Mike Singletary through the helmet with those eyes that could like cut you in half. Like that's the Madden cover that I want to see. That dude,
yes.
He played
maximum. Or give me Walter Payton jumping over the pile. The Walter Payton the pile shot, that would be a sick one too.
But that's also the problem with the Bears is that we have to go back 40 years to find.
We have to go back 40 years, yeah, just to find something worthy of being on a Madden cover.
Yeah, so I think they're going to need some positive momentum to even be a part of these types of discussions. Stadium Madden covers all these other types of things. And that positive momentum, the momentum is built through the detail work that we've been talking about over the course of this latest Chicago football show. It was another fun one. Please, thank you so much to Herb Howard. Rate, review, and subscribe to the Chicago football show. Download the Marquee Sports Network. Great value proposition. A lot of Cubs games, too. So for Carmen and Mike, I'm Scott. Talk to you next week.